Are there further amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Who seeks recognition?
Mr. Boyer of Indiana.
Boyer of Indiana. For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
To offer another amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
May the chair inquire how many amendments the gentleman will be offering to this bill?
3, maybe 4.
3, maybe 4. And if the,
And I thought about whether I could put them together, but I don't think I can.
you don't think you can put them together?
I thought about it.
Gentleman will identify his amendment.
The Boyer Amendment number 5.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve.
Boyer Amendment number 5, without objections, considered as read. Gentlelady from Colorado reserves a point of order. The gentleman from Indiana is recognized to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would title this amendment the Illicit Tobacco Trade Amendment. According to a report released last year by the House Homeland Security Committee entitled Tobacco and Terror, How Cigarette Smuggling is Funding Our Enemies Abroad. Law enforcement officials estimate that in New York State alone, quote, smuggling networks generate between 200,000 and 300,000 per week. A large percentage of the money is believed to be sent back to the Middle East, where it is directly and indirectly used to finance groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Al-Qaeda, end quote. The findings of the bill before us state that, quote, tobacco products have been used to facilitate and finance criminal activities both domestically and internationally. Illicit trade of tobacco products has been linked to organized crime and terrorist groups, end quote. Further, one of the purposes of the bill expressly states that the bill is intended to, quote, strengthen legislation against illicit trade in tobacco products, end quote. However, there is nothing to ensure that this bill will not exacerbate the widespread problem of illicit tobacco trade in our country. My amendment hopes to make sure that before promulgating specific tobacco product standards, the Secretary must determine that such standards will not contribute to a significant increase in the demand for contraband tobacco products, and the standard will not contribute to the expansion of illicit trade of tobacco products by organized crime and terror groups. As the World Health Organization has reported, the illicit trade of tobacco products contributes to the global rise in tobacco consumption and making cigarettes cheaper and more accessible. Such products are essentially attractive to people who are price sensitive and least able to afford health care, such as the young and the poor. Illicit tobacco allows cigarettes to be sold as singles instead of packs in unregulated outlets that make it more accessible to youth. The World Health Organization reported that tobacco smuggling undermines legal restrictions and health regulations of tobacco. I believe we must ensure that we do not create a regulatory scheme that increases illicit tobacco trade and creates an underground system by which the most harmful tobacco products are widespread and easily attainable in our country. So I recognize, Mr. Chairman, that you asked for a study. However, I think we need to make sure that any FDA standards, before they go into effect, do not increase illicit trade, and that is the purpose of this amendment. I yield to the Chairman.
You yield to me?
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't ask for a study in our legislation. The proposal, the bill before us, requires FDA to consider the impact of a proposed tobacco product standards on increasing the demand for contraband or non-compliant tobacco products before making it final. I think that accomplishes the job that we need done. The reason I would oppose spelling it out as you have is that the more you spell out in statute, the more it becomes a basis for a lawsuit by somebody who doesn't want the FDA to act. They'll say, you didn't really do this enough. You didn't follow this step and jump through this hoop and dot this I and cross that T. So we ask them to, and we require them to consider the impact, but we don't say that you cannot go forward with a regulation unless you have done all of these other things that's spelled out in your amendment. So I respectfully have to disagree with you and oppose your amendment.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I reclaim my time, and I accept the admonishment. You're right, you didn't use the word study, but to consider, obviously they have to put their academic brain power together here, and I just go ahead and require it. And you're right, that's a completely two different approaches to this. And I'm trying to figure out how you and I can get on the same page at some point in time. We're going to do this, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield to Mr. Pallone.
I don't really want to take up time, so I'm just, the thing that worries me about this one, Mr. Boyer, is that, I mean, it would be so easy for the tobacco industry or somebody who wanted to stop, you know, tobacco standards from going forward to simply, you know, manipulate things so that this illicit trade or trafficking actually began, and then use that as a reason to say that, you know, we should move forward with a standard. I mean, how do you ever get to the point where you can actually certify that a standard is going to have no impact on contraband trafficking or illicit trade? I just don't see how. So I understand, you know, I know that you're well-meaning. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I would be very concerned that if you put this into place, it would be very easy for someone to say that we never met that, you know, that threshold, or even somehow, you know, try to make it so that the illicit traffic and the threat is there, and say, oh, therefore we can't have a standard.
Well, I reclaim my time, and I know it's expired. I'll take care of this, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pallone, I never considered what you just said. What I did is I looked at what the Committee of Jurisdiction had stated, along with the World Health Organization, along with what the chairman's intent was, and I just thought it would be prudent to just go ahead and require it. So if the chairman disagrees, I'll withdraw the amendment, and we'll continue to have our discussions as we do on the others. Okay?
Without objection, well, you don't need unanimous consent. The gentleman withdraws his amendment.
Yes, I withdraw the amendment. I also have,
and adds to the agenda for our discussions, which I'll look forward to.
thank you. I also have another amendment.
Well, let me ask, do any other members have amendments? If not, then Mr. Boyer is the last one with amendments.
I have amendment number 7.
Mr. Chairman, reserve a point of order.
Amendment number 7 by Mr. Boyer will be considered as read. The gentlelady from Colorado reserves a point of order. The gentleman is recognized to explain it.
This amendment would refer to the your Tobacco Products Advisory Committee. My amendment maintains the member groups represented in the bill's Tobacco Product Advisory Committee, but adds one expert in tobacco harm reduction and one expert in the illicit trade of tobacco products. These are two very important groups that we really have dominated part of our discussions here today, and I think they're overlooked on the Advisory Council, which will make recommendations to the new tobacco regulatory agency created under the bill. So if we're serious about addressing the problems of death and disease attributed to tobacco use, I think we need experts on the committee who have studied the tobacco harm reduction and on how we move smokers away from combustible products toward less harmful non-smoking products if they can occur or will not, or individuals cannot or will not discontinue their tobacco use. Additionally, any actions taken by the new tobacco regulatory agency should be scrutinized from the viewpoint of an expert on illicit trade of tobacco products, the discussion for which we had just had. I believe these two members will provide an important and beneficial instruction to the Tobacco Product Advisory Committee, and I urge the adoption of the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my reservation.
Will the gentleman yield to me? Well, the gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Chair recognizes himself. This amendment changes the makeup of an advisory committee, which is to advise on science and health issues, by taking two of the professionals in this area and replacing them with other people, including representatives from the tobacco industry. We have a disagreement about this, and I'm going to oppose the amendment. Mr. Boyer, do you want to talk again? I'll yield you time.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's what I'm going to do. I've got two other amendments. I'm not going to offer them. Okay? I'm not going to offer them. I think what we should do, Mr. Chairman, is since we've got other issues for which we have agreed that we're going to discuss, I'm going to take the other issues on pesticides and harm reduction along with this amendment, and you and I get to have a sit down and see what we can come to a meeting of the minds, if we can. You and I have worked on other issues together, and when you came to me and had a tough issue, I was there for you. And so I think that the two of us ought to be able to figure out how we can come together on some of these issues. So I'll withdraw this amendment. I will not offer my other two amendments. And before we get to the floor, you and I will work through these. Is that fair?
It's fair enough, and I accept your good faith offer to sit down and talk it through with me, and I'll look forward to that opportunity.